Of all the athletes that we filmed at the World Championships, none worked harder than the Venezuelan workhorse, Keydomar Vallenilla. He pushed himself harder during sessions and he completed more overloading training sessions than anyone else that we saw. And in fact, when we were going back through our footage, there was a folder almost every single day called Keydomar, inside of which was a training session that invariably involved a 170 kilo snatch or a 210 kilo clean or some 280 kilo back squats. My favourite Keydomar moment from the whole competition came actually from this session where he makes a 95 kilo jump in the squat, which, because of his nonchalance or complete lack of awareness of what he just did, was pretty amazing to see. The thing is that for someone like Keydomar, snatching 170 kilos, or 91% of the 187 kilo world record, takes far less out of him than most others. The reason Keydomar can train much heavier in the snatch and clean and jerk with a higher frequency than the rest so close to a competition is because the weights he lifts are relatively light for him when compared to his top strength numbers. Keydomar is extremely strong in the squat. His proportions, shorter femurs compared to a longer spine, lend themselves to an insane front squat, an incredible back squat, and a deadlift that probably requires a bit more work. That's why we see Chinese weightlifters who tend to have similar anthropometric ratios focus so much on heavy snatch and clean deadlifts. Shi Ziong, Li Daiyin, Lu Xiaojun, Tian Tao, heavy pulls frequently throughout the week to correct for a disproportionately stronger anterior, or basically, freaky quads. Shorter femurs means a shorter lever, smaller moment arm, and ultimately less force required to extend the knee. And so when Keydomar, with his outstanding 280 kilo front squat that he did when he was just an 89 kilo weightlifter, as opposed to being a 96 kilo lifter here, and at the age of just 19, when he cleans 200 kilos, as he did in this training session, he's only cleaning 71% of his best front squat, and it's probably a little bit less than that. If you were to work out 71% of your best front squat, I'd bet you'd find it pretty low effort to clean it also. Of course, the pull itself will feel harder for him, but it's still relatively light compared to his absolute strength. In his weight category, he and someone like Tian Tao sit together at one end of the spectrum as the short femur gang. Both of them front squat as 96s around 290 kilos. In the middle, you'd see someone like Miso Asona, probably 20 kilos down in the front squat at around 270 kilos, but probably up on the deadlift by close to 20 kilos also. And then on the far end of the spectrum, in the tall boy gang, is someone like Lesman Paredes or Jonathan Rivas, whose front squats are probably a good 40 kilos, at least below the likes of the short femur gang, but whose pulls are effortless. For someone like Lesman Paredes, a 200 kilo clean is probably over 80% of his best front squat. And back to Keydomar, in the process of this week's build-up to his 177 kilo bronze medal snatch, 214 kilo bronze medal clean and jerk, and 391 kilo personal record and bronze medal total, he snatched 170 kilos around 5 times, several times in this session alone. He clean and jerked up to and above 200 kilos more than once, and squatted what would be heavy for most, but light and quick for him. We have so much Keydomar that I've uploaded another session of his to the Weightlifting House Patreon, along with over 50 other exclusive Weightlifting House training videos. I'll put a link to that down below for you. One of my favourite things that I saw from Keydomar, who, by the way, is a really nice guy, quiet guy actually, more about his personality later, was his 95 kilo jump in the back squat. He power cleaned up 120 kilos into the rack and loaded an extra plate aside to 170 kilos. Fair enough, it's a new movement, but he had just cleaned 200 kilos. He squats to 170 kilos and then loads another slab each side to 220 kilos, but then sits back down to rest. It's a big jump, but that makes sense for someone of his strength level. He then got up as though to squat it, and then, as though it was the most normal thing in the world, almost as though it was a split-second decision, he diverted, went over to a 20 kilo plate and loaded one of those on each side, along with some 2.5 kilo collars. 265 kilos up from 170 kilos. A 95 kilo jump. And then he doubled it like he was standing up out of a chair twice. And the thing with this is that one of two things happened, both equally as brilliant. Either Keydomar sat there for so long after the 170 squat, having loaded 220 kilos, that he couldn't remember if he'd squatted it yet. and so thinking that he might have done, he decided to add an extra 45 kilos. And what's amazing about that is that if that is what happened, he definitely didn't unrack the 265 kilos and think, hang on, that feels a little bit heavy. It was just the weight on the bar, and so he bent and straightened his legs as he always does with effortless ease. Or he actually sat there after hitting 170 kilos and having loaded 220 kilos and then just thought, whatever, I'll just make the jump from 170 to 265 kilos. It's not like it's heavy for me. And that kind of story says it all. The fact that he either couldn't tell that he jumped 95 kilos from 170 to 265 or that he did it on purpose shows how much of a reserve of strength he has. It's for this reason that throwing in a few extra snatch sessions at 170 kilos or clean and jerks at 200 kilos does very little in the way of contributing to fatigue. But it does a lot by maintaining the precise motor qualities required to snatch or clean and jerk to maximum weights. I said earlier that I'd mention a bit more about Keydomar's personality. As my first time really filming him, Keydomar was extremely easy to work with. He was very friendly, very warm as a person, and actually quite remarkably quiet. He basically trained alone, just with his coach, kept to himself, put his head down, and did the work. I don't know why, although it's probably because of his world celebrations, like when he won a medal at the Olympics, but I assumed he'd be a loud, extroverted type of person. But he wasn't at all. He was quiet and focused, definitely an endearing person. The sessions from the Colombians behind him, as well as more from Keydomar and 50 plus other training sessions, are available on the Weightlifting House Patreon for the price of a Maca Frappuccino latte per month. 70k subs, we are coming for you.